You like to imagine yourself in control of your life, consistently planning the course of your life as best as you can. But you are largely unaware of how deeply your emotions dominate you. They make you veer towards ideas that soothe your ego. They make you look for evidence that confirms what you already want to believe. They make you see what you want to see depending on your mood. And this disconnect from reality is the source of bad decisions and negative patterns that haunt your life. Rationality is the ability to counteract these emotional effects, to think instead of react, to open your mind to what is really happening as opposed to what you are feeling. It does not come naturally. It is the power we must cultivate. But in doing so, we realize our greatest potentials. From the Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene, chapter Master Your Emotional Self. Life is extremely strange, but life has a way of sometimes causing us to feel pain, to feel hurt, to feel things that we've never either felt or dealt with. And sometimes life has a way of hurting us in such a way that it can cause our rational thinking to become irrational. It can cause us to be dysfunction where we once function. The death of a loved one, the issues of relationships, even certain financial things that we may fall upon can cause us to have love and turn love into hate. It can cause us to go from logical thinking to illogical thinking. It can cause us to do from good to bad. And while we can't always justify why these things happen, but we do know that through experience, it does happen. Unresolved feelings and emotions and pains in our lives cause us to have unresolved thinking mindsets. It can cause us to do things that a rational minded person would never do. Thinking as a theologian, someone who is called to study scriptures and understand certain words and study the history and text of different things. One of the things that we're taught is never to make a rational judgment based on maybe our experience in certain areas or certain feelings. For example, sometimes you may have experienced something and felt the pain of something and tried to explain the pain and how it made you think or feel. But the way something may make you feel or make you think may not make someone else feel or think the same way, even under the same incident. Sometimes when we have to deal with higher level thinking or higher level explanations of things, we have to take in a wisdom of a book. And the scripture says, lean not to your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him. And at times, when we're trying to figure things out, we have a tendency, natural or unnatural, to lean to our own understanding as to why things are the way they are. And I chose an interview that kind of dealt with trying to explain the unexplainable, trying to rationalize the irrational.
Yeah, it is a tightrope, but I think it's something that you are obligated to do if you're trying to find truth. Because a lot of times truth is not just yes and no, truth is not just right or wrong.
I want us to take this as an example of what I call higher learning thinking. Don't think in the black, don't think in the white. Try figure out if you can think in the gray. Now, to show you this great level of thinking, I want to use something that Bernard said on his show. For example, this was the example that Bernard used. Let's take a listen.
About the guy Jay Black. I haven't even committed his name to memory. Very sad story. I didn't do content on that.
You know, not all content is good content. Not all likes, clicks, and views is good likes, clicks, and views. You know, sometimes being number one in a story may make you last. And sometimes being last may make you first. What do I mean? You know, one of the things that I understood is that certain stories really needs to be fanned out. It needs to be panned out. It needs to be dissected before it can be fully understood.
Truth can be in a lot of places at the same time. And a lot of people are not capable of holding kind of two positions that seem adverse. A lot of people are incapable of just holding one position or the other at the same time. And that's part of a strong intellect to be able to do that.
Higher level thinkers understand one thing, that you can have two truths at the same time. That's where they talk about the scales of justice. It's very probable that A can be right and B can be right. And that's really strange for people to understand that only thinks in the black or thinks in the white. Let's hear what Bernard had to say as a content creator why he didn't do this particular story.
I didn't do content on that because it was such a hard thing to even try to do content on, because
Facts.
me being somebody who's been through that system, who's been through that court system, know how it is, know how rough it is for men. I didn't want to say anything to invalidate the concerns or the hurt, the heartbreak and emotion that a man goes through right there. I didn't want to say anything to invalidate that, but I also didn't want to say anything to even sound remotely like I was saying, justifying or saying I understand what this guy did. It was you're in a rock and a hard place.
As content creators, news reporters, pastors, teachers, educators, philosophers, thinkers, many of us have a responsibility not to always report things on the first time of hearing them. And what do I mean? As content creators, sometimes we have to take the responsibility of maybe not reporting the story just so that we can have a better perspective on some things. It's okay sometimes to push back, breathe, give it time to marinate. Make sure that you're not in the story as you report the story. You know, this story was extremely difficult because there was so many different angles in which to speak on it. Same thing with us as theologians or preachers. We hear a story or we see a tragedy. And people sometimes look for us to give a response, to give an understanding. Sometimes we need to step back, really look, really analyze all the parts of the story, to report all of the errors of the truth. While you can boldly say that the end result of any tragedy is just what it is, it's a truth, it's a tragedy. Many people is hurt behind the tragedy, and that's the truth. While at the same time, prevention of said tragedy is also the truth. Meaning, for a lot of tragedies, could tragedies been prevented? And if they could be prevented or minimized, what are some of the things that we have to do to minimize tragedies? If we're saying that people are suffering from mental health issues, then are we providing any mental health resources? Are we providing anything that can maybe alleviate these said mental disorders? If it's financial, are we able to give financial means that may cause a person to be a little bit at peace than they was the day before? Maybe developing a business and giving someone a job could help them economically. Maybe developing real schools that can teach trade and skills that are economically marketable to make a person self-sufficient. So many ways that we can look at truth. And I think at times, we only want to see our truth, but we never want to see the other person's truth. And because we never want to see the other person's truth, what we tend to do is we tend to deny people their narratives or their own experiences. We tend to deny people their own personal experience. Within the African American community, the experience is vast and wide, and yet, if a person doesn't fit my agenda versus the narrative, the actual story, sometimes we cannot go around with an agenda and think that everybody's going to fit in our agenda. And when they don't fit in our agenda, we want to throw ad hominems and we want to belittle them and we want to say all kinds of belittling things because they don't fit our agenda. Agendas in the hands of some is extremely dangerous, because while it might sound good to some, it denies the humanity to others. In some groups, an African American that doesn't vote a certain kind of way is not called black. In the African American community, if they didn't grow up in certain neighborhoods, they're said they're not black. If they like certain hobbies or present themselves with different mannerisms than others, they're considered not black. And yet we have a contradiction of this word blackness, because if we say that color is a sociological construction, then isn't everything out of that construction sociological? Does it really identify a race or a color or a mindset? If things happen to women, do they not also happen to men as well? If we say that men do this and men do that because we hear the stories of certain women, do we now deny the stories of men? Who are we enabling when we choose a side versus just getting an understanding and weighing in on both sides and presenting that both sides can be true at the same time?
And
Yeah.
where truth usually is not 100% on one side or 100% on the other. So
In this case, why can't we just say that the man was blatantly wrong in the end, that his outcomes was wrong and everything was wrong, while at the same time hold that same truth, that there was a lot of triggers, a lot of things that could have been prevented? Sometimes when we have an agenda and we want to push our agenda, we deny the truth over an agenda. Now, I don't blame any particular content creator for how they report the story, but I just want to elevate the intellectual conversation. The intellectual conversation is simple. After you report the story, after you report the narrative, after you say what you have to say, the question becomes, what's your motivation? Is your motivation merely to give people the ability to think on their own by giving them equal access to information? Or is your narrative just to simply pump yourself up and be able to push your agenda forward?
as attorneys, you always, in law school, as a baby attorney, they teach you to argue both sides of a case. And they do this for a number of reasons. First of all, if you are representing, let's say, a divorce case, it might be that you go to trial on Monday and you're representing the husband, but then you go to trial on Tuesday and you're representing a wife somewhere. So you got to know how to argue both sides. But then as well, it teaches you to critically think, right? It teaches you to think, and it teaches you to say, oh, well, there's some good points on this side, but then there are some good points on that side. The Republicans have some good points, but then the Democrats have some good points. I see some reasons for abortion and I see some reasons to be against it, right? And when you talk about these reasons, the people are going to try to push you onto one or two sides, right? So, because people are going to hear what they want to hear. Let's be honest. And
higher level thinkers don't walk around with agendas. Higher level thinkers walk around with an understanding that they have a responsibility to seek the truth. Whether that truth is on white, whether that truth is on black, or whether that truth is on both sides. And then they weigh the difference. If one just happens to be a little bit stronger than the other, then it's time to deal with that. If both things are true at the same time, then they deal with that. Do we really want to know the truth? Or do we really just want to push an agenda?
One of the things that I wanted people to focus on is the system. Does that mean that it's right? No. Does it mean that it's the system's fault? No. But we have to look at incentives, right? And we have to eliminate the incentives the best way that we can.
We're going to close with this statement. Do you really understand the difference when he talks about incentives? Let's change the word. Agenda. The agenda. Some people have an agenda. An agenda means that I have a list of things and rules in order to govern a set group of people for my financial gain. It's for my purpose. Some people have a religious agenda. The more people that they can believe their religious agenda, the more money they can control. Some people have a platform agenda. The more people that they can get to their platform based on their agenda is how they get more people. But here's the catch between living with an agenda and living on a narrative. An agenda denies people their human rights and their human ability to choose. For example, if I'm a Christian with a Christian agenda, then I deny Muslims their right to have a voice. I deny Jews. I would deny other religious doctrines because my agenda is strictly Christian. I can have a Pan-African agenda where I can deny people that may look like me, but if they don't think like me and talk like me and walk like me, then I deny everybody's right to have a different view than I do. You can usually tell the people that have an agenda because they go after people that don't have their same agenda. Even if these agenda people don't have good outcomes, never had a history of success, it doesn't matter. Success to them is being at the top, making all the money that they can, denying everybody else's right to be human. When people live off of narratives, it means that they're living off of their experiences in life. This is what makes elders, seniors, different than any book or text that you could ever read or write. Why? Because they have experience. They have life. They've been through life. They've seen life. They've seen life's ups. They've seen life's downs. They've been through things in life. A lot of times people with narratives don't deny your narrative. They don't deny your history and your rights. Sounds utopia, but they tend to live a utopian, peaceful life. They're not concerned about whether or not one group is better than the other because they don't deny that group's existence. Sometimes on YouTube, we see it quite often. People will deny men the right to speak, or women will deny people's men and other people to speak. These are people that usually has agendas. They don't want you to speak. They don't want you to think. They don't want you to be free. Again, I'm not the YouTube police, and I don't claim to be the best at everything. But I've lived life long enough to know that I'd rather learn about your narratives, your story, because you're an individual. And not all of us come from the same place. Not all of us experience the same things. Not all of us been through the same struggles. Not all of us have the same dreams, the same goals, or the same motives for doing the things that we do each and every single day. The whole point of this video is just to get you to slow down. Think. Ask yourself, why do I read the things I read? Why do I participate or go to certain platforms? Am I really getting what I want? Or am I strictly living off of the emotions of how these people make me feel? Are they helping me a better version of myself? Or they're just merely allowing me to feel the same way. No outcomes, no differences. I've been asking this question a lot of people. If somebody's agenda is true, what is the results? If I went off right now attacking a group of people, then what am I providing? If everybody denies one group, what is the other group providing that the other one is not? Just a food for thought. Look out for my next video on Know Your Reason Why. If this video has touched your heart, touched your mind, touched your soul, touched anything, maybe gave you something to think about, do me a favor. Hit that like button. And while you at it, become a member of this family. Become either my niece or my nephew. If you're a couple, be both. Give me a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you may have learned. Let's come together. Let's not have an agenda. Let's learn various narratives. Let's grow together. Let's build together. Not only here on YouTube. Let's even grow and build outside of YouTube. My goal is that you be better than me. Go higher than me. Go farther than me. Dream bigger than me. Be better. Don't just be me. I don't have an agenda. I just have nothing but love for you, the individual. This is Uncle Stu, the old man on the block. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace.
This is Uncle Stu, the old man on the block. Like, comment, share, and definitely subscribe. Emancipate your mind. Peace.